But then the question comes, in your day and my day, kids used to come out of college and go to these wonderful opportunities to earn a good living and start a family and buy a home and car and all of the other good things in life by working in a factory. And those jobs are not going to be there any longer in any great numbers. There'll be some there by attrition. There'll be hundreds being hired in instead of thousands. So the future isn't bright for the young people who are located in the cities where our factories are, because they're not going to be hiring in any great numbers. And then, because of the condition of the workforce, the employers are going to be more and more demanding of the type of people they hire in. In fact, I just had a chat with a fellow last week, and have evidently instituted a new testing procedure in all three companies, Ford, GM, and Chrysler. These are for new people now, never worked there before. They can't do this as seniority people. And just as verbal description is test, it's fairly demanding. And you wonder whether or not they're going to screen out a lot of people.
I noticed on highway construction, when you and I were young, you'd see a wheelbarrow and a shovel. Yeah. Now all you see is this tremendous equipment. Probably the fellows running it are getting good union wages, but I guess where are the jobs going to be?
Yeah. Well, what you've got to count on is a expanding economy. Now, it's sort of overstated. All the new jobs are McDonald's. There's a lot of good service jobs, and that's where it's going to be. And then comes another complication, because the wages relative to steel and auto are relatively low. It means overall that the standard of living of the current generation, rather than being what has been in all of the previous generations, I think at least this century, where the new generation always had a higher standard of living, or the predecessor generation, that's not going to happen anymore.
Well, that seems very pessimistic. It seems to me if we're increasing productivity, this is economics 101, it should be able to be shared so everybody's a little bit better off.
Exactly.
Is that, but you think that's not going to happen in the immediate future?
I think there's other things entered into it, Tom. It's not only automation, because after all, theoretically, in economic theory, automation allows you to produce more with fewer people, which means you drive down the price of the product, which means that you need more people. In auto, for example, and just a couple of quick figures, in 20-year span, 55 to 75, we increased production 74%, with 13% more people. Now, while we had this enormous increase in productivity, we still were hiring people because you had an expanding market. Because in 55, we had roughly 7 million cars and trucks. And in, I should say 55 and 75, we had 12 million. But if the market weren't expanding, we'd had massive unemployment. So I think I'm not optimistic about the standard of living. I think probably the jobs will be there. After all, we've created, since Clinton took office, 6 million new jobs. But the type of jobs are not going to be as good as they have, particularly for those people who just have a high school education.
Yeah. One thing, we're jumping quite a bit. I'm talking about the matter of union leadership. You came from a union family, certainly worked up in the labor movement. Now I'm thinking of some people I know, like our good friend Irv Bluestone's son's one of the leading economists, I guess at MIT, and I saw in someplace he's advising Gephardt on economics, a very important job. Ken Robinson, a very good friend of both of us. His son's the dean of law school at Wayne University, doing a very good job. Gus Scholes dropped out of high school in the Depression. His daughter graduated from Harvard Law School, which is not bad. I think Vic Ruther's one of his nephews working for the UAW, and I think you have a son working for the UAW. But where's leadership going to come from in the UAW in the years to come?
Well, where it has to come from are these people that are now hiring in. I don't have the numbers offhand, but you see, as time goes on, auto workers will be leaving by the thousands. They're leaving, they're retiring at an earlier age all the time. And so that's where leadership has to come from those new people that are now hiring in. It's the first time in years and years that we've hired in new people.
Yeah.
I think it'd be almost an impossible question to answer, except for what's now happening, where new people are coming in. The laid off people, they've all been back, they're absorbed. So what you're going to have from this point forward is new hires.
I'm thinking of the period of the 30s that we had this tremendous unemployment where we had very competent people,
Oh, sure.
and now a lot of them are getting in the more skilled professional jobs, and you think it's going to.
The people coming into the factories now, Tom, are have much higher level of education than we had. I just read a piece at the Windsor plant in Canada. I'm sure there's probably some parallel situation in the United States where fully 1/3 of the new hires are hiring over there also are college graduates.
Yeah.
And I hear stories now about people who are college graduates or a couple of years in college hiring in. And the other interesting thing is our own International Executive Board, where we now have 3 college graduates sitting on the board. Yeah. Outside of Irv, I can't remember a member of our board being a college graduate. I'm pretty sure.
And was Irv on the board?
Well, Irv,
he was head of the GM.
Yeah, but then he was elected to the board.
And then he was elected to the board. That's correct.
And I think probably, because certainly Walter Reuther wasn't, Leonard Woodcock wasn't, I wasn't. I think, so what's happening is now in the leadership of the UAW, we have college graduates for the first time.
Yeah. I want to give a little example of the pragmatism of the labor movement, that when I was in college, we'd hitchhike up to the Flint sit-down and run coffee and mimeograph. And I remember that was a time when the great fear was communism taking over the plant. I remember asking this fellow in the sit-down, I said, well, are the workers taking over the means of production? And he looked at me, you kind of dumb college kid, but I was out running coffee, and he parted his hair and showed a great big scar. I said, what was it? Well, he'd been on the picket line, I think, in Hamtramck, and the horses, mounted police, just cut his skull open. Yeah. So he said, I'm inside this plant, and there ain't no blankety blank horse going to get at me. Well, well, I think I learned more there than in any class, that very pragmatism. Now, I've heard many times the labor movement years back, workers would say, keep the union out of politics, keep the politics out of unions. And I know you and Walter would talk about the interests of the bread box and the ballot box. You want to tell me a little bit about how the union members were transformed into being more and more interested in political life?
Yeah, well, I think probably we hammered away at the proposition that you have less control over your destiny at the bargaining table as time goes on. It's truer today than it was in our time, because so many things are affected by politics. For example, just to name a couple, healthcare is a horrendous burden at the bargaining table. They don't even have to talk about it in other countries in the world because they have national health insurance. Trade policy, tax policy, all these political policies affect your life, and so you have to be involved in the political life. But I can remember bringing it down to state level when we negotiate SUB benefits, that we eliminated the 1 week waiting period has a hell of an impact on that SUB fund. In Indiana, they wouldn't let us integrate it originally, in a couple of other states. So no matter what you do at the bargaining table, you can make gains with one hand, and the state legislature or the United States Congress can take it away from you in the other. So I think the workers, and maybe that's a lesson that has to be relearned, however, because I still hear that view. Well, you know, the union's role in society is to take care of our wages and fringe benefits and working conditions. And politics is a personal thing. Well, of course it's a personal thing. But the person has to understand the impact that politics has on